I'm going to go through a brief of the suit. So the Mvskoke Creek Nation is suing the IHS, the Indian Health Service, naming the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health, Alex Azar, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, what the suit amounts to is the tribe is, and I'm going to go over several points, and everything is, all we have right now is the lawsuit that was filed by the tribe. So we don't have any response from the government or anything, and so we're just, everything we're going to talk about is going to be based on that.
I requested statement from Principal Chief Floyd, Sean Terry, and Kevin Dellinger. I did receive a response from Chief Floyd that indicated that he would need to speak to Kevin Dellinger, the Attorney General, to see if he could even comment on the litigation.
Yeah, and this was filed on May 1st, and Jason asked for the comment on May 2nd, so we're still waiting to hear back. Basically, what the suit outlines is the Creek Nation alleges that for the fiscal years 2006 through 2014, the IHS, when they calculated the amount of federal funds they gave to the tribe, they didn't properly do their, let me look at the terminology here, the
homework?
Interest, there's a specific term, indirect cost rate. So when the IHS factored how much money they were going to pay back to the tribe, they left out all of the administration for the third-party billing that the tribe did, okay? And they only used their interest cost rate for the federal monies that IHS gave back to the tribe. And so the Creek Nation alleges that ended up creating a $55 million or $53 million dollar loss for the tribe, and then another additional $35 million loss because of the administrative costs associated with the loss of that $50 million. Okay, so the tribe says that because we had to use program funds and move them around to pay for the administration of these things that you're supposed to be paying us for, we lost an additional $30 million, which totals out to around $90 million, but also they're claiming a higher number. Yeah, here. The nation incurred no less than $102,589,025 in contract support costs carrying out its fiscal year 2006 through 2014 contracts with the IHS. After accounting for IHS payments and appropriate credits, IHS failed to pay the nation $59,787,412.
So it's the administration costs to process our third-party revenue that racked up that huge bill.
Yeah. Let me. There's another quote in.
He said it has something to do with the indirect cost rate, though.
Yeah.
So it's all in how that rate was calculated. In that they didn't give us enough back for the rate.
Yeah, and in the lawsuit, and we've posted this on the website, right? Is that right? Have
yes.
We got so if you go to if you go to MvskokeMedia.com and go to our documents page, you can find the actual lawsuit documents and you can read through it. But in a nutshell, the lawsuit references the IHS regulations on how they're supposed to calculate these monies, and even the tribe even says that even though they didn't calculate this extra money coming in, they didn't even pay us what they were supposed to pay us under the calculations they did. It says, additionally, IHS failed to pay even the amounts due under its own deficient calculations. So they're saying not only did they not calculate it right, they had a figure that they calculated, and they didn't pay us that. That's what they're saying.
So this big, bad legalese document here that has a lot of stuff that John Q. Citizen in Bristow really isn't going to understand. In lay terms, what are we talking about that actually happened here? If we just had to quickly sum it up.
IHS didn't give us the money that we were supposed to get in federal funding.
Yeah,
and
from 2006 through 2014.
So for 8 years, we're trying to recoup the total amount.
Well, this lawsuit has just been filed. Now, it's kind of, in the lawsuit, it's kind of hinted at that the tribe was waiting until some other Supreme Court cases that were references. So other tribes also sued IHS for a similar type of thing. Right. They were waiting for those cases to get decided so they could use that as precedent. Okay. Maybe that's why they were waiting. Yeah. But it still begs the question, like, how did we miss this? Did we miss it? When did we find out about it? Yeah. Especially in light of the whole budget thing.
And you said that ends in 2014, correct?
Well, that's what this
So
lawsuit
the
is
year-
for.
Right. The years are for like 2008 to 2014.
2006 to 2014.
2014. So when we're looking at that number, and it's a $90 million figure, is what they're saying.
Yes. 90 million
the
plus.
suit is for.
Yeah.
When we're looking at that figure, the first thing, of course, that comes to mind is a
Health
couple of
deficit.
years ago was the health deficit, which was
65.
also, well, I believe we got a loan for $90 million though.
Yeah, and then
So-
the last figure was like 65 or something.
They're kind of
like that.
ballpark in the same area.
So here's my question.
And one of the
Why-
reasons for that deficit was listed was third party collections.
Right.
Yeah, and
And-
also the building of all these new facilities.
Now, I pulled up one of our stories from October 2016 regarding the health deficit, and it has to do with the audits. And this is why I asked that question, because it says in an audit that we were given by the executive branch for the Department of Health, their expenses exceeded revenues by $22.6 million in 2015. Now, we'd have to go back and actually dig through that audit and compare that with what we have in that suit. But is this an ongoing issue?
Well,
That there could be future
Right.
years.
Well, and there was
included
nothing
in this?
listed in the audit. You guys can refresh me, but I'm fairly sure and certain that there was nothing in the audit that indicated any kind of lack of doing their job on the federal government's part from
I don't know.
IHS.
It just-
There was
it
never
just
anything
said-
mentioned
Well,
as
if
far
the
as
bud-
we didn't get any money
Well,
from
I
it.
remember asking, because obviously this is when Chief Floyd came in, George saying that we've always been underfunded, correct, in our past coverage?
Well,
when we got them on
I
camera?
think that's typical whenever we cover
I
health,
don't
is
know
that
if
health
these-
isn't funded at the rate that it's supposed to
Right.
be.
I don't know if these two things equate or not, but it definitely raises the question, obviously, because
Right.
it was the deficit was directly and very clearly specifically attributed to new facilities that were started under the last administration. But now we see a figure very close to that number that's saying it's underfunding by IHS.
Right.
So
Well,
what's going on?
but
the
that-
shortages would be explained because if you're making the budget for the department and you're taking the IHS regulations that says the feds are going to pay us X amount of money, and then you make your budget based on that, and then at the end of the year the feds don't pay you X amount of money because they don't follow the things that you're following, they don't do the calculations you're doing, yeah, you're going to be short. Of course you're going to be
Well,
short.
but that's what I pointed out in the audit. Is it says expenses
Yeah.
were higher than what the money we're bringing in.
Yes.
So is that the same thing as we weren't getting the IHS money?
Right.
But that's the whole thing, is when they design their budget, they're going to, so that's what the suit is talking about, is that IHS already had regulations, a handbook that dictated how they were supposed to conduct these payments to the tribe. And that's what they didn't follow. The IHS didn't follow its own rules. So you could easily, now this is all conjecture because we would want the administration to, say whatever their administration is going to say when we do the interview. But you could easily say that if you're designing the budget for your department and some of that money is federal money, you're going to take the handbook for IHS and you're going to take those indirect costs and ballpark it or whatever and say, well, our budget is going to operate this much our money and this much federal money, or however you're going to do that, right? And then if the feds don't pay you the amount that you, using those calculations, come up to, yeah, you're going to be short. It's going to be short.
Yeah, the timetable and the
One of the
technical
parties
ins and
didn't
outs
follow the rules, is what the tribe is saying in this lawsuit.
of this lawsuit next to the deficit are the big questions in the timetable, because obviously I think we saw in that too that we had been negotiating with IHS for a while, seemingly before trying to go to this kind of action.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, this goes back years and years. I mean, when did we find out? Are we changing our stance on where the deficit came from? Do they even correlate?
Yeah.
Obviously, the calculations on these financials are pretty complicated, so the explanation surely might be as well.
Well, I mean, even at that, we're talking about the Creek Nation side. How many other tribes are in this similar situation? And is this going to become a multi-tribe lawsuit against IHS, against the federal government for not fulfilling their duties and their obligations to pay for health care?
I'm just going to read this second paragraph because it kind of outlines kind of what you're talking about. This action follows several Supreme Court decisions finding the government's failure to pay contract support costs to contractors like Mvskoke Creek Nation to be contrary to law and a breach of contract. See Salazar versus Rama Navajo Chapter, Arctic Slope Native Association versus Sibelius, Cherokee Nation versus Levitt. This action is being filed after good faith but ultimately unsuccessful negotiations between the parties. So basically,
so there is precedence with other tribes. I mean, they are, like you said earlier, they're looking at what's happened in other cases and saying, is this a recurring problem or an issue with IHS, or is this our own problem? And obviously, it looks like it's not. It looks like it's going on, and it has been going on.
Well, the Contract Disputes Act that they reference in here requires them to do those good faith negotiations.
Right.
You know, so you sit down at the table, try to work it out there, and it's obviously not getting worked out. So, barring that, we got to go to court. So,
but that's another question I think we all have too. Is how much money did we lose out on, and how much did citizens lose out on care that could have been provided to them?
That in the suit,
no matter what we stand to recoup, there's some things that can't be undone if this is in fact true.
Well, and the costs that will be incurred in fighting it too, as well. These things aren't free, we know, and especially when you're going after something as I guess what you would say involved as this, especially with IHS. It's a government agency, government to government. You have a lawsuit between two government agencies. There's going to be a lot of litigation here.
It's interesting times. You know, you've got Murphy going on too. You've got interesting political climate. You've got midterms coming up. I mean, there's no shortage of things for us to chase.
I mean, this isn't the only suit that we're involved in right now. I mean, we're all watching the Murphy case, of course, but we've got the opioid crisis suit and multiple other suits that are going through the court system that we're about to follow for the next year or next couple of years, because there's no telling when that case will get heard.
We've got cases being delayed because of cases. So I mean, it's crazy.
I just wanted to run through this little thing because we were talking about the effects, and this is what they're alleging in the suit. IHS's breaches of the fiscal year 2006 through 2014 contracts also caused the nation damages in the form of lost third-party revenues, as well as lost indirect contract support costs, which were due to direct contract support costs IHS failed to pay. These damages were caused by IHS, were a foreseeable result of underpaying contract support costs and are quantifiable. Specifically, the nation has lost an additional $34,352,661 due to the government's breaches. So that's the additional amount plus the 50. So they were shorted the 50.
Here's my next question. So we're talking about a deficit. We're talking about funds lost. So are we in the red this amount because we provided services thinking that we were going to get those funds? Or did we have to deny services because we weren't
That's what
getting
they're
those
saying.
funds?
That what they're saying is we could have gotten more third-party revenue if we had gotten the money, but because we didn't get the money we were supposed to get, we couldn't administer things we couldn't provide.
Right.
So it was denial, not we'll recoup and take the loss and try to recoup it later. I mean, we'll take the loss now and try to recoup it later.
It was
denial on the surface.
That's why that section
because we had a lot of denials. You know, a lot of people were.
Well, I mean, we
and
hear that all
there's
the time.
cause to believe maybe perhaps it isn't tied to the.
Well, that's why
deficit.
they say
if
with
we
that.
just didn't issue the services, then the money wasn't spent.
Well, you guys know we've had people and citizens come to us about contract health issues anyway, and say, "Hey, media, look, we've been turned down for this, and is there something going on?"
Jessica's comment about things that can't be undone.
Absolutely.
I mean, often I've seen people like they're in a pinch and they need a big bill covered fast, and they're incurring debt for services rendered and everything, and then after the funds are depleted, they have to turn them away if the tribe has to outsource those costs. I believe contract health was mentioned in this suit, right?
Yeah. So that's what they're saying basically within that is that the damages were foreseeable, the 34 million, the additional 34 million, because of the underpaying the contract support costs. So it looks to be, I don't know.
Now, when do we get going on this? Does anybody know any definitive dates?
This is in the Northern District
Yeah.
of
Okay.
Oklahoma,
Yeah.
so it's in the district court, the U.S. District Court
Right.
for Oklahoma. And I mean, those cases don't tend to move fast. I mean, you've
No,
probably got
and the stuff that the other cases that they reference
Mhm.
are Supreme Court cases.
Mhm.
So you would think that
Mhm.
if negotiations fell down or fell apart, and then we're going the legal route, the United States could easily go all this way to the Supreme Court with it if they want to contest
Yeah.
it. You know, that the money isn't going to change hands unless the United States says, okay, we'll pay you, or the Supreme Court says you've got to pay them, and this is a lot of money, you know.
Yes, sir. We can land
You,
on
you,
that.
you would expect that to
what
be
what do you think the odds are that this even goes to court or it's settled outside of court? That the feds choose to do that?
They
for
could
They've
have already done
already
that.
talked in
Yeah.
negotiations. Now,
Who knows
faced
if they
with a
haven't?
legal challenge, that can
Mhm.
change people's minds potentially.
Well, they
but-
could have already done it. You know, if they
Well,
were
yeah,
gonna
that's what I
settle out of
mean.
court.
We don't even know what's been under the surface. This is the surface. We don't know what's been under it, what's happened previously to get to this. There could have been several attempts made at a settlement,
Well, even,
just like we saw with Hickory Ground. I mean, we're still going there and trying to get a settlement there, and they're still
yeah,
you know,
according to the nation, they've already tried to do the
Yeah,
negotiations.
that's what I'm saying.
They
There's
had
no
that, but
lawsuit time.
you guys got anything else about this?
Yes, sir.
No, we'll just keep an
Okay,
eye on it.
all right. So at the end, we'll do the second topic, which is the bonus topic, and you guys don't know anything about this. So
Oh, God.
I have a source that sent this stuff to me. I'm going to give it to you, and then I'll give you an outline of what I was told about the situation while you're skimming through these. Basically, the state of Oklahoma passed the ball and dice legislation.
Mm-hmm.
So what the source is telling me is saying that the first thing here is a memorandum from a law firm. And what this law firm is doing is they're trying to get all the tribes to sign on, because each tribal government has to pass a law, or what is it, the legal constructs for the ball and dice on the tribal government side
Right.
before they compact with the state.
Yeah.
Now, what the source is telling me is that the Creek Nation, hasn't done that yet.
Correct.
Okay, so they're saying that this has been presented to the administration, and the administration hasn't done anything on it, and expressing concern that they're not going to be able to get these Dodge games in. Now we interviewed Mr. Cross, and everything we've seen from them has been, we're going to do it. It's going to happen. Projected to go into fall.
Yeah, and he said what he said was he said the attorneys are telling me, you know, because we have to go back to the table, pass something at the tribe, then get something worked out with the
Yes.
state, and then if that goes through, then we can do it. And he said
I think they have to go to the NIGC first.
Right.
To,
That's
to
what-
get
yeah.
that
that-
Well,
approved.
because it's a new law, they basically have to go back to square one.
Yeah, the second thing, this is what the law firm is presenting to them. This form language has been approved by the NIGC. So that's what the story is that this has been presented to the tribe, and it's already approved, and you guys need to get on with the other tribes, et cetera, if you're going to have it in the fall, is what the source is saying.
Okay.
What I said to that was, it seems to me that each tribe would want to negotiate separately their compact. This is saying 10%. You know, my understanding was that each tribe had a different percentage in their contract, right?
Well, this is called
not for gaming though. I think gaming is under one big compact, and all the distributions
Is
back
that
to the
right?
state are the same.
Well, they were
now
saying
the
our
tobacco
compact
is different.
The tobacco compact
but,
is different. Okay, I see.
But I think it is my understanding that the gaming compacts are all the same across the board.
Okay,
And
that
you're-
would make sense.
And you're saying, because it would match up with the fact that you're saying this memo from this law firm is discussing a blanket compact agreement.
Well,
When
that's
it
a lot
comes
of
to
people
all
to
the
get on the
tribes,
same
basically.
page,
Well,
internally
very much so.
and with tribe to tribe,
And with that in
and
mind,
taking that to the state.
you would think that what Mr. Croft said about this fall would be very, he's got a lot of hope.
The tribe needs to get something passed.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
But would it
if
go
he's
through
confident
council?
in that,
Does that have to go through council?
Yeah, I mean, I assume so. That's what this is. This is like, the second page is like
yeah, if it's a government-to-government deal, surely.
Well,
this
that
is
would
the
have to go
language.
through council. But if they're changing the gaming regulations to include that, would that have to go through council before they send it off to the feds for approval?
I could see
No,
that.
no,
being
no. What
true,
they're saying is that the feds have already approved this.
Right.
The gaming council has already approved this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys pass this language, you're okay,
Right.
and you can stay on the timetable. Then all you got to do is have this, compact with the state, put the games in, you make the money.
Yeah.
If you guys rewrite anything or start over, you're going to have to go through that process where the NIGC is going to have to approve anything you
Right.
whatever legislation you pass.
Right.
So there's not really anything happening with this, but it is something I've heard, and behind the scenes, people are worried that the tribe isn't going to be out in front of this thing and get what we have to get passed on our side legislatively in order for that to be in there. And then we'll be at a loss compared to the other tribes because they'll already have their ball and dice in, and we won't. And then they're going to pull that audience.
Well, and when I talked to Pat Crofts, he indicated also that there had been a lot of legwork leading up to the announcement of the ball and dice legislation, and a lot of letters written, and we want to do this from the Creek Nation and everything like that to legislators. He referenced Jerry McPeak as well, a former Oklahoma legislator that had been really driving hard on behalf of the legislation. So that kind of gives me an idea that there has been some legwork and there has been some preparation. So anybody that would go, oh, I wonder if the tribes just, has sit back and then now they react, that tells me probably not. They've probably been preparing for it. And also a shot of confidence in that regard as well is Pat Crofts saying, I'm talking to the Creek Nation Casino's attorneys, and they're telling me probably in the fall is when you'll start seeing this in our casinos. So that tells me, and Pat is not, and he's a smart guy, and he knows how to talk to the media and everything like that. So that tells me that he felt, free enough to be able to say,
to give you
I've had discussions, and we're probably going because
Jared,
he doesn't.
What you're hearing
he's not the
is
kind of guy to
there's a
say
delay
that.
on our end compared to the other tribes.
The source says the administration's got this. They got this.
Okay.
That's what he's saying is they got this, and we haven't seen any legislation. Just like we
put it
haven't
up on the
seen
screen.
we haven't
Can you
seen
put
any-
this up on the
a
screen?
lot of people.
Sure.
All right,
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, we can. I mean, it's just a memo
The-
saying.
one of the
do
things
X.
one of the things that I come back to when considering that we're not going to have to go like individually as a tribe to the state to compact for the casinos is they've already passed the law that it's exclusivity fees of 10%.
Right.
So the reason you go back and forth with the tobacco compact is you're negotiating
Negotiating a
out those
percentage.
fees.
Yeah.
This is already
This
set
is
out
like
in the law.
10, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there are any delays, it's quite possible they're just making sure they're checking with the people they want to make sure they're all on the same page.
Sure.
Well-
Is there a deadline we know of, anything like that?
I don't have any idea what the penalty would be if we missed that, other than the loss of revenues compared to the other tribes.
Well, it clearly demonstrates the difficult negotiations of government to government and getting consensus within a government.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things that you don't want to be the last to the table.
Uh,